Hey, how's it going, Nick?
It's going good. I'm recording from work. I'm on my lunch break at work.
I as we get ready for Halloween, I'm binge watching some horror flicks. You and I both aren't huge fans of horror movies, right?
Not really horror films in particular, but I like good movies, so I like good horror movies, but I'm not one of
Yeah,
those people who will watch whatever slasher film happens to.
exactly. That's how I feel. So, what's the scariest, in your opinion, what's the scariest movie you've ever seen?
I would say the most scared I've ever been as an adult watching a movie was Rosemary's Baby. I watched it during college and we stayed up really late one night. It was on AMC. I believe there were some substances involved and I got
Hmm.
really freaked out.
I haven't seen that. Put that on the list. I don't think we've talked about that. I haven't seen Rosemary's Baby. I think the most scared I've ever been was American Psycho. Also, can blame some substances.
I
That
think American.
chainsaw scene.
Yeah.
Hmm.
See, you were scared by that. I mean, to me, that plays almost like really dark comedy.
It was supposed to be dark comedy, but again, the substances. I don't think I received that movie like I was supposed to.
Have you watched it since?
I've seen it several times since then. Bill, my husband Bill, loves that movie. He
He's
like
right.
laughs. It scares me how much he laughs through that film.
It's a brilliant.
Also, he's a big fan of Phil Collins, and so
Well, and you're a big fan of Huey Lewis in the News, so it works
oh my
out
gosh, no way. I also thought Misery was terrifying.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was scared when I was a kid, and I rewatched it a couple of years ago, and I was
Yeah,
still
it's so
very
good.
on
It's so
edge.
good.
Man, I'll tell you, Rob Reiner had the. No one agrees with me, but Rob Reiner had the greatest stretch, in my opinion, of any filmmaker in history. In the 1980s, he did Misery, Stand by Me, When Harry Met Sally. Um, he did Spinal Tap, and he did A Few Good Men, all in the span of 10 years.
I had no idea he did Misery.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That list is incredible. He doesn't get enough credit as a director.
And The Princess Bride, I didn't even mention.
Yeah, that's amazing. What's he doing? We need more Rob Reiner movies.
Well, then he made like three bad ones, and that was it for him.
Yeah.
Like the 90s were not super kind to him. And
Yeah, he tapped out.
yeah. So, hey, this is the Halloween episode, and I'm in this room that doesn't have great lighting. So I put my little work light.
Yeah, I love it. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's
But
that's
look at
good.
this Halloween
That's
lighting.
good. Can I just turn the light off? It is a podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a video podcast, but my favorite part of the Halloween lighting is the reflection I'm getting right here. That's
It's actually giving you a lower hairline, Nick. Sorry. Welcome to the Film Swap podcast, where we challenge each other to watch the movies that we've let slip through the cracks or purposely shoved into the cracks for whatever reasons. I'm Angelica Thornton.
And I'm Nick Vole, and today we are talking about two Halloween films, The Exorcist and Alien.
Somewhere between science and superstition, there is another world. The world of darkness. Nobody expected it.
Let's see what
Nobody believed it. And nothing could stop it.
Okay, I love that we're doing this Halloween edition. There are actually quite a few horror films that the both of us haven't seen. Nick, you're not a huge fan, like you said, of slasher films.
No, like I like I'm gonna move this light. I look terrible. I like the I like the suspense of horror movies, like good ones. I don't like the blood. I don't like the senseless, pointless violence, but I like the psychological horror. That's why I like The Shining or Rosemary's Baby,
Exactly.
Alien, like we're gonna talk about in a little bit. I really like those. And those are ones that I only came into as an adult because when I was a kid, my parents like drilled it into my head that these movies are too scary for you to watch. And they not in a weird way, but like I was a kid, I shouldn't be watching them, right?
Yeah.
So then as an adult, like I was like, nope, sorry, can't watch them. And then in my 30s, I'm like, I'm a grown up, I can watch these. And so I've come around and I've seen a lot of those types of movies now, the classic ones that you should see.
Yeah, the good ones. We actually busted Soren, my 13-year-old. He started watching the Dahmer series
Oh no.
last week. And I was away on a girls' trip, and my husband was texting me, and he's like, I just caught Soren watching Dahmer. He's 3 episodes in. And that's when I did the mom thing. I'm like, you cannot watch this. I watched 10 minutes of the first one, and I was pretty horrified. Obviously, it's like based on reality, and it's just totally graphic and over the top. And so now I'm wondering what that did to that little boy's brain. But
He's 13 though. I mean, he's
he's
not
13. I know. And he's a mature 13-year-old, but I was really, I don't know. I had to turn it off. It was too much. So have
I
you
get
started
it.
watching that?
No,
Are
I
you
don't really
into that
want
stuff?
to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to watch. I mean, movies are one thing because when I watch a movie and it's tense, it resolves and it goes away and it might stick with me for the night. But TV series, it's like I want escapism in a positive way. I like shows that grind you down into feeling crappy. I don't want to watch. And like that
Yeah.
strikes me as that. I mean, even quality shows like 6 Feet.
Breaking Bad and all
Yep.
of those
Yeah,
shows.
we stopped Breaking Bad
Ozark.
after
I
season
love those
2.
shows. And I watched them both. I watched Ozark all the way until the last season. I couldn't take it anymore. But now I'm way more cautious about starting those.
Yeah, because you feel crappy after you watch them. Like not because they're
Exactly.
bad, but because the things that happen on
Yes,
screen.
exactly.
So
All right, let's start with The Exorcist. This is the Rotten Tomatoes summary. One of the most profitable horror movies ever made. This tale of an exorcism is based loosely on actual events. When young Reagan, Linda Blair, starts acting odd, levitating, speaking in tongues, her worried mother, Ellen Bernstein, seeks medical help, only to hit a dead end. A local priest, Damien Karras, played by Jason Miller, however, thinks the girl may be seized by the devil. The priest makes a request to perform an exorcism, and the church sends in an expert, that was Lancaster Marin, played by Max von Sydow, to help with the difficult job. It got an 84% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, 87% audience score. I picked it for you to watch because, it's so scary. It's one of the scariest movies of my childhood, but admittedly, I hadn't seen it in years, and I watched it again today. So why haven't you watched it yet?
Well, kind of what I was talking about. In my head, it was one of these movies, if you watch, your eyes burst into flames and you know, are so scared you can never sleep again. So
Yeah.
I never watched it. And then at some point, like it isn't my favorite genre. I just had never gotten around to it. And you mentioned last week. Well, you mentioned last week on the show, you watched it as a 9-year-old.
Yeah, I think it was like 9 or 10 years old, right around then. This came out in like 73, a year before I was born. And I know I watched it in the very early 80s. And I should not have watched it, obviously.
Yeah. And you watched probably the TV version too, which is even less scary than the.
Yes. Yeah, but I still remember some of those super graphic scenes. So I don't know if they just weren't censoring it for TV or what. Maybe I watched it again, and I just kind of remember that. But yeah, I watched it. I was too little. My brother was really upset and he was 2 years older than me. So both of us were way too young to be watching this movie.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I can see that it's a well-made movie. I didn't find it scary at all. William Friedkin's a great director. He did The French Connection before this. He's a great director. He made the movie with skill. I didn't particularly like the movie and I didn't think it was very scary. And here's my big takeaway on this movie. This is like a right-wing conservative's wet dream. A Hollywood actress, don't block this, no shadows on my face here. A Hollywood actress, a self-avowed atheist, has a problem with her kid. Medical science can't help her. The church can. The church comes in and sacrifices their lives to save this little girl. And now, so I don't know. I couldn't get away from the feeling like this was like Catholic propaganda.
And it has been criticized for that. You're an atheist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up Greek Orthodox, pretty religious family, was forced to go to church every week. So I think when I watched it initially, I still believed like that there's a devil. And I mean, it's not Catholicism, but it's pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought you could be possessed and that exorcisms happen. And so I think at the time it was scary to me. When I watched it again today, I kind of laughed off a lot of the scenes and I thought it was a little bit hokey.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it just hasn't aged well. I want to know what you mean when you said it was well made. Are you talking about the cinematography and
shot composition? And the pacing was very slow, I will say that, but I think it's pretty typical of its era. I think you did a really good job of building dread. Like I felt anxious as I was watching it as the movie progresses, and But so that's what I mean. Yeah, well composed shots, interesting angles and editing, and it was a little slow, but like you can tell like someone who really knew what he was doing made the movie, and which lends it also sort of it lets it transcend from essentially the B movie origins of it, because it's very pulpy, obviously a 12-year-old girl spouting obscenities and doing sexual things. Quality filmmaking elevates it above the roots, I guess, of it. And I will say that the stuff that was supposed to shock you is still shocking. Like that little girl saying those things and doing what she did with the crucifix. I mean, that still is shocking and it's effective in that, but I don't find it scary because the concept of a literal devil is funny to me. Not funny, but like,
I hear you.
I don't believe in it. So it's just like it's a villain that you are expected to have a built-in fear of that I don't.
Yeah. And I did not know, because I was, -1 years old at the time when this came out, about the reaction it got in theaters. Have you heard this?
Yeah. Like people were freaking out.
Yeah. Like people were freaking out. There's this huge controversy about the rating, saying it should have been X-rated because of, the crucifix scene. People were vomiting in theaters, having seizures. I don't know if any of that's true. That seems like pretty over the top to me, but those were the stories thrown out there in the mid 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also surprised about how hard it was to cast for this film. Apparently they couldn't get any big time actors. There's a rumor that Jack Nicholson was considered, but he didn't want it. And so all of these actors were relatively unknown at the time.
Yeah, I think only Max von Sydow had any kind of career. But I think it speaks to the B movie nature of it. Who would want to get involved with a movie where you read that script and you don't know if it's going to turn out to be good, like it did, or if it's going to turn out to be like, a B movie.
Yeah. So what did you think during some of the most, famous scenes, like Reagan, like vomiting the pea soup or her head spinning? Were you just laughing at that point?
I mean, it wasn't scary. Like I appreciated it for what it is. They're fun. Those are fun moments. Regardless of what they are, like whether you get scared or not. I mean, they're like,
right.
You still say, "Holy whoa!" But I'm not scared by it. The kid's name I did want to bring up. The entire movie, mom is calling her Reagan. The entire medical staff is calling her Regan. It's like the filmmakers couldn't decide what her name was, or they didn't keep it straight between the two groups. I thought that was pretty funny. But anyway, I like the pea soup part's pretty funny. I mean, it very clearly looks just like pea soup.
Yeah, I just and I was picking up on all these other things when I was watching it. Like how bad the special effects seem now, obviously. I mean, it's pretty, it does almost seem campy at this point. When her head like spins around, and I was like, that's not even good for 1973, although I have nothing to compare it to. Also, there's like the whole storyline starts in like Iraq with a dig, and he finds a pendant and he finds some artifacts, and then he looks and sees that statue or whatever it is, and then he sees some dogs fighting, and then he ends up being the priest who dies during the exorcism. And did they ever explain that connection at all?
You're meant to, I think you're meant to assume that the demon he found in Iraq is the same one possessing her, and then the necklace that he found there is the necklace he gives to the mom, but it's very tenuous. The whole thing's very tenuous. But see, what's interesting is when the movie started and we're in Iraq, it really captured me because it's beautiful. Like the cinematography is gorgeous, and I was watching this Blu-ray print that was really pristine and it looked beautiful. I even said to my wife, like, I can't believe this is from 1973 because it was so clean and beautiful. And then when it gets mired down in the family, then I start losing it a little bit. But there wasn't a huge connection there too. And what I thought was fascinating, because like I saw Max von Sydow show up on screen, and I know him as an older actor from all the stuff he did in my lifetime. And like, how long has this man been old? Because
it's true. That was
only 44 when they shot that. So that's old age makeup on him.
Oh, I didn't realize
that. And it was really good.
I actually like looked up to see how old he was when he died, because I thought it must have been 130.
Yeah.
Seriously. He was pretty good. I don't know. Is there anything you felt that worked well in the film?
I think the sense of dread it builds is very effective. I do. I think
silence too. The silence was good.
For sure. And the movie went forever before anyone spoke. And I thought
Yeah.
that was really effective.
Yeah.
I thought so. Jason Miller, who played the priest, this is his first movie. So
Yeah.
I was reading
He's
a
a
little bit about
playwright,
this.
wasn't he?
Yeah. Like, I guess they went to him to get some like critique on the script and talk it over. And then he came back to them a couple weeks later and was like, I need to play this part. This is me. I grew up in a religious family and we did all this stuff. And this is me. And they eventually settled on him. It's kind of amazing. And I don't feel like I saw him in anything else ever again. And he was pretty good.
Yeah, he was great. I also think that Father Karras's mother was perfect. I'm saying this obviously as a Greek person, so I overanalyzed everything about those scenes. Her Greek was perfect because she's a real Greek person. Her apartment was perfect. The Greek food on the table was perfect. The fact that she refuses to leave her home. And the things that she said to him in Greek were the exact things that my yaya would have said to my mom had she not saved her from getting into a hospital. I was like, oh, this is great. And there were no translations. Were there?
Not that I saw.
Yeah. So everything was perfect in those scenes. I thought that was great. I was confused because Greeks are not Catholic, but there's a very small population and he's a Catholic priest, but everything else about that character was great. And I thought he did a great job in that role and, portraying a priest who is really struggling with his own faith. I thought that was great too. Maybe a little more of that would have been good.
Yeah, totally. I could see that because less focus on Reagan and her mom. Like Ellen Burstyn, I've never been a huge fan of as an actor. And I think they didn't give her a lot to do except sort of panic the entire movie.
See, I'm not a fan either, which is why I haven't even been saying her name right. It's Burstyn. I think I've been saying Burstein.
She's bursting all over the scene.
Seriously.
Yeah, she's bursting like the puke out of Regan's mouth.
The whole movie, I was distracted by how much she looks like Julia Stiles at that age. She was okay. I mean, I wasn't like, she was all right. I didn't think she was great, but
she didn't have a lot to do. This is
thing,
she
just freak out and cry over your daughter. The
whole fact they made her an actor and that was a minor part of the movie, like didn't add much. Like, she didn't need to be an actor, I think.
That was kind of like the boring parts of that film. I don't know. I didn't think that was great.
I didn't quite understand why. So at the end of the movie, the priest jumps out of the window and kills himself effectively to get rid of the devil. And I didn't quite get why he had to do that, but because the devil was so powerful that's the only
that
way.
He just goes from person to person, right?
Yeah. So if you jump out of the window and then I don't know.
It made no sense to me either. All right. You want to talk about Alien?
Sure. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Some of you may have figured out we're not home yet. We're only halfway there. Mother's intercepted a transmission of unknown origin. You got us up to check it out.
Human.
Unknown.
Okay, Alien, a 1979 science horror fiction by Ridley Scott. It follows the crew of the commercial space tug Nostromo, who, after coming across a mysterious derelict spaceship on an undiscovered moon, find themselves up against an aggressive and deadly extraterrestrial set loose on the Nostromo. Stars Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, John Hurt, Ian Holm, and Yaphet Kotto. Came out in 1979, and you had never seen this film before.
Nope.
What'd you think?
I was worried at the beginning because I thought it was a little slow to start. I was worried I would get bored, but then, wow, I texted you a lot of swear words while I was watching it. That's all I did.
I showed my coworker and he got a good laugh out of that.
I absolutely loved it. I feel like such a ding dong for waiting this long because I think this is one of the best sci-fi horror films I've ever seen. Probably the best one. I just feel like an ass for living more than half my life without seeing this. It was so good. It was so good. I want to watch all the other ones.
So yeah, that's funny you say that. So again, this was one that I hadn't seen until I was in my 30s because I was too afraid to see it. We loved it. And then so when the start of the pandemic, my wife and I started franchise movie Mondays, where every Monday we would watch a whole film series, and every Monday we'd watch the next film, and then we'd start with the next, few weeks later.
Yeah.
So we decided we were going to do Alien, and we'd already seen the first two and Prometheus, and the one after. We'd seen most of them already. The plan was to watch one a week for 6 weeks or whatever it is. We watched one every night for the entire week once we started. We couldn't stop. And yeah, they're not all great. And Alien is the best of the series, but they're definitely worth digging into the sequels. A lot of people will tell you Aliens, the next one, is the best. I disagree, because it's one of the interesting things about this series, and I don't need to go too deep on this, but every single one of them is basically a different genre centered around the aliens. So the first one is a horror sci-fi. The second one's an action sci-fi. It's more about shooting and gunning and blowing things up. The third one is more like almost like an indie. It's very slow paced. It's more mental than others. The third one, or the fourth one, is kind of like it's oddly enough, the guy who directed Amelie directed it.
Oh, so random.
And like, it's just a really weird one, but they're all a little different. Is what I'm trying to say.
So you like this one the best, the first one?
This one is definitely the best. It's scary. It's engaging. You actually like the characters, and like it's such good writing too, because some of the characters, they don't have a lot of lines, but they have just enough that you know who they are.
Exactly.
Without a ton of exposition, like Yaphet Kotto's character or Harry Dean Stanton's character, you know who those guys are with the barest of dialogue.
Exactly. And when I said I was like worried at the beginning, I'm talking just minutes. It wasn't like I was 30 minutes in and I didn't like the movie. I was just like, oh, it's so dark and so slow and they're just talking. But I think that worked. The realism worked. Like I was like, this is real. This happens. People are in space in these cargo ships, and this is real life. I thought the cinematography was fantastic. Just the slow zooms around the spaceship, so quiet, so dark, chilling even before we saw the organism. The pacing was great. The suspense when Brett was looking for Jonesy the cat, and you just know. And then the look in the cat's eyes. I mean, that was a fantastic moment in film history. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but that was a perfect scene. That was great.
Yeah, and there's so many scenes in there that you can say that about.
Yeah, it was so awesome.
So what was your favorite part of the movie overall? Like,
I really liked the Ash twist. I didn't see that coming at all. My mouth was literally hanging open. I know that Ripley said I don't trust him at one point, but that's really the only hint we had, that he was a robot.
And that's not even a hint he's a robot. I mean, she could have just been.
Yeah, that's the only hint that something else was coming, that he was going to be a bad guy. Yeah, that's what I meant. When Ripley, I mean, there's just so many iconic scenes when she's got just a couple of minutes left, like 5 minutes left before the ship destructs and she's trying to abort, and she just screams like, "You bitch," and she smacks. I don't know what she was holding, but she smacked something and running out of the room. That could have been so corny, but it was so perfect. Sigourney Weaver pulled it off so perfectly. I thought to myself, I need to buy a t-shirt. Seriously, I need to buy an Ellen Ripley t-shirt. I'm in her fan club. What a badass.
Yeah, and this was her first movie, Sigourney Weaver.
I know.
And
I can't believe that.
Why she became a star after this. Like, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she was nominated for an Academy Award for this.
She was, I think. I think it got maybe best like adapted screenplay. I don't remember. It won something. You said, we didn't get a lot from the characters, but I was like devastated when each of them died. Mm-hmm. I thought they were great.
I was devastated when each of them, except for Veronica Cartwright's character, died, because
that's true. She's a little annoying.
She's so annoying, and and it's not her fault. That's all they gave her. And like, she's a space person, and then like anytime anything happens, she's like, no, like just paralyzed with screaming fear.
Well, her voice didn't help. She has a super irritating voice. I don't know if that was just the role or what, but it was like you'd hear her like, on the intercom system or whatever they were using, and I'm like, just mute that. You don't need to know what's happening with her. She's fine. Just ignore her. Did you think there was some sexual tension between Ripley and Dallas? Who's Tom Skerritt's character?
Sexual?
Yeah, just something going on there. Because I was worried that they were going to go there. And I was like, oh, they're in love, or they've hooked up or something. And I don't blame her, by the way. Tom Skerritt, a young Tom Skerritt, is super hot. But
He was in his 40s there. He was like your age
yeah,
now.
yeah, exactly. Still hot. I respect that didn't happen. I feel like when these movies go in the direction of a romantic storyline, I get really mad. I do not like that at all. So that ruins a lot of movies for me when there's a love story and they end with the hug and da da da. So I'm glad that didn't happen. But I sense like really, really this underlying, I don't know. It was good. It was perfect. It was so subtle. I might be reading into it because I have a crush on Tom Skerritt, but I have no idea.
Yeah. What? Yeah, I like Tom Skerritt. You know what the funny thing I can't help think about, and this is applicable to no one but me and my wife, is Tom Skerritt in that movie looks exactly like a younger version of my next door neighbor,
Oh,
who is also my family doctor, who we've been seeing.
that's weird.
So yeah, when we bought our house, we moved in and we were doing the final walkthrough. I'm in the upstairs bathroom and I look down into the neighbor's yard and I'm like, is that Dr. Snow? And it is. So
Awesome.
the guy who's had his fingers in places I don't want to tell you about is now the guy I borrow power tools from.
Oh, that's weird. Oh,
But he looks just like it. He still has that haircut. I mean, the beard
that's
is
great.
exactly the same, except like if Tom Skerritt's character were 20 years older.
Oh, that's great. So I don't have any complaints. We like to talk about what didn't work. I really don't have any complaints. I mean, there were a couple cheesy lines, and Parker and Brett, constantly asking about the bonuses at the beginning of the film.
No, but see, I like that. I think that
could have been cliche, but it didn't bother me. And it was like realistic, that's what would happen. You get stuck. Okay, what? We can't go home. Am I going to get paid for this? It worked.
Because it's a job. They're not, and these guys are like, they're space truckers is I think what.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
They're not like astronauts. Well, there were two things for me that didn't work exactly, but they're minor things. One is like the limitations of the special effects at the time. The bigger the creature got, the less believable it was, because it's a guy wearing a suit at the end.
Yeah.
It's a 6'10" guy, I read, but you still lose the sense of proportion, I guess. So that was a minor thing. The face hugger is the scariest thing I've ever seen in a movie. Single thing, the thing that makes you recoil the most is that face hugger on John Hurt's face.
That's why I was texting you every swear word imaginable. I was really floored by that. It was so good. And it wasn't like super graphic. It was just perfect.
Because you can just feel you feel your throat tighten. You feel like it's on your face for a second.
Exactly. When they went to cut into it and the acid. Oh, that was wonderful. I loved it.
But the other thing that didn't work for me, I mean, look, it worked for me, but I think was unnecessary, was the end when she's practically naked and like the camera is so like just
you can see her butt crack totally.
Yeah.
She's like leaning over. I'm like, are we gonna get fully naked here? Her underwear's hanging off. Yeah.
You can there's one shot where they like zoom in on her crotch as she like swings her legs into the astronaut.
Yeah.
That was a bit much. But like,
I wonder, I don't know, what were they trying to do there? I guess they were like, oh, she feels safe. We want the audience to feel like she's home free. She's safe. She's putting her jammies on. She's getting cozy. Let your guard down.
Yeah. It makes her more vulnerable, I think. Is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that she's like a young, pretty woman doesn't hurt for a movie with zero other sex appeal, I guess.
Yeah. I loved this movie. I'm so glad I watched it. Gonna watch it again this weekend with my older kid.
And it's so funny too, because last week we did another Ridley Scott movie, House of Gucci, which we both did not.
I hated it. I can't believe this is the same director.
Well, this is his masterpiece. I mean, he's made a lot of great movies, but this is his masterpiece, and that is one of his lesser films. So
so he did Thelma and Louise too, right? We talked about that. You got to watch that one.
Well, put it on the list, baby.
Yeah, it's really good. This was so good.
What a professional. Phone on.
Uh-oh. Decline. My car warranty. Sorry about that.
Don't let it lapse, because you can't get those cars fixed otherwise. Let's see. What would you recommend either of these two movies now to anybody else that you run into? Either movie.
Yes. Obviously, Alien, I would recommend. I'm going to watch it again this weekend with one of my kids. I think Exorcist too. I think it's one of those like just classics. Although it's not as good as when you're 8 years old and you're, not supposed to be watching movies like this. I think it's still entertaining. What about you?
Definitely Alien. I mean, I'll tell anybody to watch Alien. I I think as a curio, as a cultural, like piece of our film history, yeah, watch The Exorcist, but don't expect a lot.
Yeah. And I think you are definitely a special case too, as far as like religion and that whole, like the whole underlying tone of the movie, because you feel pretty strongly about religion and you you share your opinions on that. So I can see,
I do.
I mean, we've talked about that. You and I have talked about this before because I'm agnostic, and I think the way you summed it up is perfect. And there are articles out there about how The Exorcist is like a conservative's dream.
Mm-hmm. I haven't read those, so I want you to know I didn't
No, totally.
my opinions here, but interesting. Yeah, I mean, I would recommend it. I think it's part of film history. It's one of the most important movies ever made, I would say. And it was genuinely shocking at the time, so you can view it as a relic of sort of an era for sure. So
Yeah, and if you like that slow 70s vibe, that Kramer versus Kramer, like all those 70s movies are so quiet and slow.
I've never seen Kramer versus Kramer.
All right. Well, we keep adding to the list, so we're gonna have to watch that one too.
I've purposely avoided that though, because again, in that idea of I don't want to watch movies that make me feel crappy at the end. You know what I mean? I know that one's gonna. It's like why I never watched Marriage Story, the Scarlett Johansson, Adam Driver yelling at each other movie.
Yeah, that's smart.
I don't like Noah Baumbach either, who made that film. I think all of his movies make you feel crappy at the end, so I don't really. But that's a whole other podcast, I'm sure. So there you have it. 2 recommendations for your Halloween. Have you watched any other Halloween-y movies this season?
No, nope. I think we're gonna like do some binge watching over the weekend. This weekend leading up to Halloween. We still haven't even started getting ready for Halloween. Everything's later this year. I think the weather kind of threw us off.
Sure. Well, it's been so nice. Who wants to get ready for Halloween?
Exactly.
Barbecue.
Exactly. But I'm gonna do the scramble with the kids to the Halloween store, and like whatever they have left, that's what we're gonna be.
My son's going as a traffic jam. He's 5 years old, and that's what he wants to be, a traffic jam. So my wife is putting together a black sweatsuit with little cars in a traffic jam.
Oh, that's so cute. Are you guys dressing up?
Yeah. So usually in the past, he said what he wants us to be, and it has nothing to do. Like last year, I went as the moon because that's what he wanted me to be.
Yeah.
He doesn't care this year. So I ordered a Ted Lasso jacket. So if it arrives in time, I'm going to go as Ted Lasso. I honestly just wanted the jacket for myself. And if it doesn't come in time, I have a Trailblazers jersey and shorts. I'm going to go as Damian Lillard.
Nice. Or Damian Lizard.
Yeah.
I saw your tweet.
Last night when the Blazers game was on, my son very excitedly ran into my office and Daddy, come quick. Damian Lizard's in this one. Because
maybe that should be your costume. You can combine the lizard and the Damian Lillard shirt, and inspired by August. That would be cool.
Green lizard.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. We're not dressing up because I have to go 1,000% or nothing. Okay. So I think last time I dressed up for Halloween, I saw you. I was
Brad's house.
Yeah, we were Jack and Wendy Torrance from The Shining, and I just torture myself. Everything has to be perfect. So I don't have enough time to pull it off this year. So I'm already planning for next year's costume.
All right. I respect that. You're a cosplayer of sorts.
Yeah, totally.
Well, go ahead. We have been watching some other Halloween movies. Have you seen Shaun of the Dead with Soren yet?
No, we have to watch that. I've seen it, and I think Bill has seen it. Soren has not seen it.
That's a perfect one for a 13-year-old. It's a little scary. It's very funny.
Yeah.
I watched the Lighthouse last night. It's a Robert Eggers movie. It's got Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe as 2 lighthouse keepers in the 1800s, and then they go nuts essentially.
Oh, I like that. Okay, I'm going to put that on the list.
So my wife recently made me watch Hocus Pocus 2. And I have to say that it is the worst movie I've ever seen.
Really?
Probably.
Have you seen you hadn't seen the first one, right?
No, I've never seen the first one. I never at any point was a 13-year-old girl. So I did not see the first one.
I have multiple times on the news had to talk about Hocus Pocus 2 coming out. And the conversation has always been, Angelica, we can't believe you haven't seen Hocus Pocus 1. And what I want to say is, what is wrong with you? Like, when that came out, I was probably in my 20s. I don't know when it came out. Maybe I was in college. I have no idea.
92-ish.
Oh, yeah. So I was in my late teens. I don't ever remember being remotely interested in it. And it just still doesn't appeal to me. But I feel like at this point, the pressure is just too much. I need to watch it.
If Hocus Pocus 2 is anything like Hocus Pocus 1, I would really advise not watching it.
Okay.
It was just awful. It was not funny, and like it just seemed like such a shameless grab for money, and just like this reboot thing where it's all about nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's not about quality, and there's all these fun things they reboot that do turn out. So I'm not saying they shouldn't do it at all, but like, God, it's like flushing down a turd and then trying to replicate the turd. It's like it's a turd, let it go.
It's so good. All right, I'm gonna watch it. I'll let you know what I think.
Okay.
No, I'm not a huge fan of those actresses either. I mean, they're all right, but it's not like there's nothing drawing. Isn't it in Salem, Massachusetts too?
Yes.
Yeah, and I grew up near Salem, and I hate the whole kitschy like Salem, witches. That I like the real Salem like witch stories, like when you go and you learn about the actual witch trials. But I hate all the Salem movies. They all seem like made for TV movies to me.
Yeah, the production value was very low on this one. I don't know what the first one was like. Don't see Hocus Pocus 2.
Hubie Halloween. I think August could watch that. I don't know.
Really? A
It
5-year-old?
depends. Do a little research. I mean, it's like scary in the people jumping out at you kind of scary. It just depends on the kid, but it's cute. It's very Adam Sandler cute. Don't trust me though. Do your research, because my kids are older. So I remember being totally fine with both the kids watching it whenever it came out a couple of years ago. But it was cute.
My son gets scared by interpersonal dynamics. He gets too nervous to continue watching the My Little Pony show because characters are being mean to each other.
Oh, so he's not a fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, he loves Larry David. Yeah.
It's perfect.
He loves them. So, Angelica, you have a recommendation for me to watch for next week?
Yes, Better Off Dead. I'm delighted that you haven't seen this movie. I've probably watched it 30 times.
Tell me about it.
It's definitely one of those 80s teen comedy. I don't know what even that genre is called anymore. John Hughes type films. And it's a ski movie. Do you ski?
I went skiing one time and I was very bad at it, so I've not been back. I come from a flat state originally.
You'll like it. I haven't seen it in years, so I want to watch it again and update my feelings on it.
Okay. Yeah, and I love John Cusack. I know he's in it, and I think like we talked about Rob Reiner having this unimpeachable run. John Cusack had an unimpeachable run in the late 90s to early 2000s with Grosse Pointe Blank and High Fidelity and Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil and a bunch of other good movies. So I'm interested.
Yeah, Grosse Pointe Blank is one of my favorite movies. That's the best soundtrack of all time, in my opinion. Love that soundtrack.
Saturday Night Fever, but it's close.
Really? Saturday Night Fever.
Dude, I love disco music.
Do you really?
I do.
Oh my God, you keep surprising me. Okay.
I'm full of surprises. I'm like a Tootsie Roll Pop, but in the middle, instead of a Tootsie Roll, you get something good.
All right. So Better Off Dead is for next week. You can watch The Exorcist on HBO Max and also probably all over the place leading up to Halloween, I'm guessing. I think I saw it like in 5 places through the weekend on cable. And then I watched Alien on Amazon Prime Premium, but it's available on all the other streaming services for like $3 or $4.
Yeah, do it. Halloween right around the corner. Get yourself good and scared.
All right, that was fun. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Film Swap is produced and hosted by Angelica Thornton and Nick Vole. You can watch or listen on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Follow Angelica on Twitter at Angelica KATU and follow Nick at Nick Vole. Share your thoughts on the films we discussed there, and we might just read them on the show. Music by John Michael Farley and Nick Vole.